Welcome back to another video, ladies and gentlemen. Sending out a lot of love. We are back with the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg, Part 8, 3 of 3. Shout out to Wendigoon as always. The series has still been dope and been awesome. And if he wants me to take down any of my videos, I do not mind. So welcome back, guys. How are you guys feeling? You guys feeling good? I can't hear any of you. Scream right now and wake everybody up. Or just scream right now and freak everybody out. Scream right now. Nah, in all seriousness, subscribe if you want to be a part of the founders. I upload every single day, and I take video requests. You guys know this. So anyways, without further ado, no more time wasted. Let's hop straight in with our Hawaiian shirt-wearing daddy. All right. I think I'm good to go. I think I'm ready. I think the audio, hopefully the audio is on my speaker and not my headphones, but let's see. Find out.
Hello everybody and welcome to Tier 8 Part 3 of the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg. I am so excited to get to some of this information because ever since I first looked at the list, I wanted to just spend the whole time, and I know this, I say this with a few of the intros, but I wanted to just get into all the really weird and out there concepts with UFOs and evolution and of course giants. So, and now we're getting to the point where we get to focus on a lot of that and it just feels so rewarding.
Oh my gosh, him and Giants has me weak every single time, man.
Up to I think 417,000 subs, and it's so weird. I got nostalgic doing this. Whenever I started the series, I was at maybe 700, 8, and now we're here. And so many people have joined on the ride as we've been going. And I really can't thank you all enough. So thank you. One quick announcement I want to say before we get started is
I keep saying it, but that time capsule, man, it's weird. It's well, not like it's buried and then you come and look back at it, but it's just it's that feeling of just going through this now and having. It would have been cool to be someone along the journey, but
that once this entire series is over, what I'm going to do is I am going to take the entire iceberg, every single video, cut off all of the intros and outros, and then make it one video. That way, if any of you all or people later on down the road who find it want to listen through it without all of the starts and stops in the playlist, it'll just be one 11-hour video of everything at once. That way there's less mid-rolls, that way it takes up less time, etc.
That'd be crazy.
That we're almost to the end of this thing. But I'm having a great time and I'm going to enjoy it to the end. So thank you all for being here and thank you for watching. I'm sure, just like me, you feel like a psychopath at this point for enjoying it. But that's okay. Psychopaths are people too. But you don't have to be a psychopath to enjoy. That's right. Today's sponsor, Darkfire Heroes. See, Darkfire Heroes is unique from a lot of other mobile games because as a gamer myself...
To hop into the video, I'm going to skip the sponsorship. But still very cool.
Because it really is a fun game and it really is everything they hype it up to be. So thank you all so much for watching through this ad. Thank you to Darkfire Heroes for sponsoring the channel. It means a lot. I hope that you check it out. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it really means the most. And we are back to the video. We're going to go ahead and get into it. I'm excited, but as always, thank you for watching. Aliens caused the bubonic plague is the theory that aliens caused the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague, also known as just the plague or the Black Death, was a disease that swept through mostly Europe but the rest of the world in the 14th century. It's estimated to have killed 25 million people, or a third of the world's population. There were several prevailing theories at the time that mostly came from the church, that the bubonic plague was either God's punishment for the immorality of the people, or that it was a curse brought onto them by the devil or witches. And that witch thing is interesting because there are several theories that things relating to astrology and spells and sorcery are the relation of extraterrestrial beings. So combining some of the ideas we've talked about in the iceberg up until now, you take ideas that aliens create magic or that aliens are just beings in a plane that we can't see. So if you think the bubonic plague was called by sorcery, then that sorcery may not have been of Earth. And the motivations for this could be population control, an attempt at total extermination, who knows. Enchanted websites is related to the idea.
The only thing I really have to say about that kind of had me weak is... nah, you guys are not going to want to hear it.
That there is a sort of fake success that is bestowed on some people through the use of magic. While there's a joke somewhere in here about how to fix the algorithm, you pretty much have to get lucky or use black magic to get there. The idea is that certain famous people came to the power that they have through the use of these magical enchantments. In research for this, I came across a website.
So it's called enchanted websites? That's strange to me. Man, there's more I want to say here, but then I'm like, certain things I actually just don't want to talk about.
Site called Enchanted Websites that is really, really old and was advertising that they can make you famous by just giving them your website. They kept talking about all their clientele who went on to great success and saying that they can bestow their special capabilities onto whatever you're already using, and then you'll get popular. Of course, I tried to see if I could get some magical whatever advice, but all the websites and links were dead, so sad. But it all relates back to that greater theory that some of the success we see in the world of whatever's popular
is fabricated,
is artificial. Sun Collapse is...
Well, I mean, you have everybody. You have a lot of... Okay, so say for music industry things, you have a lot of artists coming out and saying like, yo, there's not these, mostly when you see listeners or something, it's not organic. Like, you really think there's 100 million something people listening to Nicki Minaj. That's what I've heard one person say. He's actually like some big spiritual YouTuber, but or spiritual concepts, I don't know. But there was him, there's many artists, some people reference J. Cole to talk about like, oh, those numbers aren't even real, they're bots, like people are being pushed by machines, yada yada. And then it's like it's kind of easy to I feel like at a certain point it's easy to tell who's actually reached or with organic reach and then who's not organic reach if you have a certain level of discernment. I feel like it's a bit hard at times, but then there's some cases, of course, the other side of the coin where it's like super easy to tell. But yeah. And who knows? I guess they're pushed for whatever agenda. That actually makes me think about like a Minecraft. See, I don't even know why I come across these things. I think it's literally because of what my passion is and just like, I guess, listening to a bunch of different worlds. But I remember like 2 years ago, I actually came across like a smaller Minecraft channel, like maybe I don't know. I don't even like to say small because there's a thing like I like to say like I feel big even though like I've got this small family that I do on my channel for Lunar. I feel big. You guys make me feel big and I feel big myself and I love entertaining y'all. So I don't really know how they'd feel about this. But he had like 50k YouTube subscribers, something like that. And in his video, I think he was talking about I don't know if you guys have seen these accounts, but the accounts that are like, oh, I was a Minecraft YouTuber and I only had like, or something, and I deleted all my videos, but they have like 200k subscribers, but they only have one video saying, oh, who is this channel? And they had this whole theory that these accounts were deployed by YouTube. I'm not really sure, but it's not only that. In the video, they also talked about people like in the Minecraft community who were boosted up to certain points, which like I said, don't really care. Don't know if it's true. I'm just doing me, but I think they mentioned Dream and a few of his other friends, and I don't know if that's true. Like, when I watched them, I could see a little bit of the like appeal of why they'd grab attention. Like, it's like, it's hard for me to really say because, I just see everyone as kind of like normal at the end of the day. Like, just, there's like everybody's a beast in their own aspect, kind of like that. Like, I see greatness everywhere. So it's kind of like, it's just like kind of normal to me. So I couldn't really find the appeal of why some of these guys are as big as they are. But some of the stuff he made sense because of that kind of thought process that I had going into it. When you peel back some layers, it kind of goes back to the whole thing that I think about for celebrities, where it's like, I've always said this as a kid, like, and I also used to get clowned on it until people realized it was serious. Well, sometimes I say clown, but it was like really just like two people, and then mostly everybody else was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I made a post saying, like, I don't even understand why people gush over celebrities. They're literally just people, like, doing what they're passionate about, which that's where the attraction and stuff might come in, but you could do that yourself. And I have, and I've seen the result of that. If you continue forward, you're being authentically you, doing what you love and are passionate about, that's attractive. But yeah, I was always weirded out as a kid by, like, these people being, like, infatuated and watching shows about, like, the Kardashian or these families or reality, like, certain reality TV. I was like, yo, bro, that's just weird to me. Like, live your life. But I don't know, to each their own. But that's what I mean when I see people, like, I guess, I don't know, when I see people, like, dream them, I can't really pinpoint. Maybe some of them are, like, fabricated celebrities. I don't doubt that there are them. I don't know. Or fabricated online personalities. Because are people still splitting up celebrities and then, like, internet influencers? I don't know. This shit is weird. This shit is weird. Anyways, let's just move on. That was a little bit of a rant. Not a rant, just a little bit of a, I don't even fucking know where that was going.
Concept of solar farming. Solar farming is exactly what it says. The fact that us as humans continuously farm the energy that...
To properly end that other one, while he talks about this energy farming, the moral of the story is, with all this conspiracy stuff that you see here and people pulling out information and people getting exposed for stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if there's crafted, like, if there's almost like groomed popular people online. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, and that celebrity thing I meant to say is the whole never meet your heroes thing, where, like, they end up meeting, like, a celebrity or something, and this person, like, turns out to never not be what they were. Like, it's a person's completely a dickhead in person, doesn't want any human interaction, shit like that. But they've been supporting them this long. That's why I say also that everyone is kind of just the same, and I could never gush over a celebrity, because it's like you could meet them and they could be completely what you did not expect. So you're only seeing their work, but you never know. You might not like them if you actually meet them. So shit like that. But yeah.
That's expelled by the sun. The basic idea with this is that we're farming it too much. In other words, through using its heat or its light in order to grow agriculture or just solar panels, we are taking away from the equilibrium that once existed. And it all goes back to the whole idea of, like, energy conservation. And essentially, while the sun's believed to be a burning star, this is saying that the net value of heat that it expels has to be kept at a sort of even level, and that we're throwing that too much in the balance will eventually make the sun run out of energy and therefore collapse, and then we all die. So neat. Microchips found in fossils is not a joke, and there have been fossils that have been opened up and things found that were initially said to be microchips. Now, in every single one of these stories, the details of it have been walked back afterwards. For example, a T-Rex bone that had a microchip found in it, they later said was a fossil of some ancient bacteria. Another one they said was just a bone fragment that looked a whole lot like a microchip. And kind of related, I remember in research reading about stories for previous sections about fuses being found in ancient pots. So for example, they open up this completely undisturbed grave, they're going through all of the pots in there, and then they find what appears to be modern day fuses. This all relates back to a concept called the Great Reset, which I don't know how much in detail I want to get about it now, because I'm pretty sure, like, the Great Reset itself is mentioned later on, but...
Okay. We're getting into Great Reset territory. Bro, I don't even know how much I would like to say on it either, and how much you can say, but I would just like to say, I would like to shout out a channel one more time. I'm going to show it on screen, and I need you guys to go at least check out a video, because, man, the stuff that this guy finds here. So I haven't watched, of course, I do like a whole thing that puts down. So bring that back up. Bring this back up. John Levy. Go check out that channel. I'm telling you, since we're getting in the Great Reset territory.
Short version for now, the Great Reset says that we constantly exist on a cycle. We go from the first remnants of humanity to a point where we destroy everything, and then thousands or millions of years later, the whole cycle repeats itself. That would explain things like why the Earth, despite being hundreds of million years old, humanity only has history around 10,000. The idea being we'll all get wiped out, there will be a reset, and then those people that come however many million years from now will find remnants of our existence and then gather them. The reason that T-Rexes had microchips on them, and the reason people used to put fuses in jars. That's your
Used to be Horizon Zero Dawn.
basic intro. I'm sure it'll come up later. If not, I'll do a video on about it. Whatever, next topic. The Black Snake prophecy relates to a legend of the Lakota tribe. Essentially, the Native American tribe of the Lakota had this legend that near the end times, a great black snake would come across the land and destroy everything. The legend says that it will desecrate ritual sites, that it will destroy villages, and that it will come from the ground and then return back to the ground. As many modern Lakota members have pointed out, this is a perfect example of the ideas of oil pipelines, roadways, and other modern industry. The idea being the idea of a great black snake coming and destroying the ritual sites of the Lakota, and now a giant oil pipeline is trying to do the same thing is alarming. But politics aside, this has a greater expanding idea when it comes to prophecy. Things that most people would brush off as being not true, if you can view the black snake as being the modern fulfillment of an old prophecy, then what other old prophecies could also be true? Things I mentioned like the Wendigoon, a disease that essentially consumes someone with greed, could be the idea of modern corporatism. You could take it on and on and on and say maybe some of those crazy spiritual beliefs weren't so crazy after all. Underground caverns. Ooh boy. So every time another hollow earth theory thing comes up, I mention sort of a different facet of it, and one day I'm going to do a video putting it all together, but there's a few I want to go over with this one. For example, the Tibetan holy books said that beneath Mount Everest specifically, there were these tunnel systems that went all over the world. Now, if you know anything about cave systems, the majority of them are completely unexplored. Near a cave system that I live by that's a popular tourist attraction, they've tried to drop trackers into riverways to see where they end up, and they will totally disappear forever. And also,
bro, that tells you something. And I also would never want to explore these and come across the tribe of things we've never seen before and just get mutilated.
the majority of underground systems are closed up by the government, and in most cases it is a felony if you destroy or try to get access to them. This leans back into the thing I've kind of hinted at in a lot of theories, that the entire world has these underground systems that work towards the bigger concept of hollow earth. And think about it, every single group of people have some form of legend of creatures living underground. Either it be old Chinese tales of frogmen that come from underneath caves, or old night stories of these troglodyte creatures that they would fight on their expeditions. Even religions with the common idea that demons live underneath, or the idea that you can dig your way down into hell. That, combined with the fact that it's believed underneath the pyramids is a massive underground cave system, or the idea that these random structures on Antarctica were constructed a long time ago as a signal to get underground for some reason, and other ancient societies who had a distinct interest with caves, and some of them disappearing altogether at once. It makes you wonder. Biblical aliens is basically the idea that several things that are mentioned in the Bible as rather innocuous concepts are actually about extraterrestrials. Put it this way, there's a ton of mentioning in the Bible.
The whole hollow earth and underground cavern stuff is actually kind of interesting to me.
Bible, especially the Old Testament, that people will worship the stars and the things in them. Well, if you think about other concepts we've talked about of UFOs and the fact that they've been here for however many thousand years, then it puts together the idea that these people may not just be worshipping the constellations. And some take this to mean several mentions in the Bible of either angels or these great sightings appearing before people are actually aliens being described by prophets. Some go as far as to say biblically accurate angels are actually just what extraterrestrials look like, which is a terrifying concept. Air's poison isn't necessarily saying air is going to kill you. even though technically it kind of does, but that's besides the point. More so, it's saying that air is a drug. For one, oxygen itself is a sort of like hallucinogenic, and if you take 100% oxygen at once, you can pass out or get very lightheaded. The idea being all the trace particles that we breathe in every day from the point that we're born till now create a sort of blurred idea of what reality really is. So that asks the question, if air causes these sort of long-term psycho events, then what does reality really look like, and has anyone really seen it? This could also explain why things like the supernatural and spirits aren't visible to us, because maybe there's a sort of fog in the way of our viewing. The Luna Park Train Fire Demon,
what the
which
fuck?
is one heck of an entry title. On June 9th of 1979.
That air is poison is another kind of crazy one. It'd be really weird to think that we've been breathing on in a psychedelic the entire time, and it keeps you like, I don't know, like a weird form of sedation to what reality really is. That's crazy.
The Luna Park amusement park had a ride known as the Ghost Train that caught on fire and ended up killing 7 people. The story itself was really tragic. Basically, people who were on the ride were killed while within the ride from a very brutal fire, and an investigation that occurred later ruled that the fire was caused by an arson on purpose, although the perpetrator was never caught. Then one day, while a woman who lost her son and her husband to the fire was going through pictures of the park that day, she came across this image. Now, other than being absolutely terrifying, the person in the costume is especially alarming, as no one was able to find him after the event. There was never a record of them hiring or having a costume like that, because why would a park make that a mascot for kids? And from all points
I'm like looking
record,
off to the right because I don't want to look at it.
Park and was just a bystander. So for one, it's really creepy that that guy was there on the day of the fire. And two, it's doubly creepy that presumably the dad or someone took a picture with their kid next to him. What some have pointed out that's especially creepy about this is that the costume bears a striking resemblance to Moloch. Moloch is one of the gods of the Canaanites mentioned in the Old Testament of the Bible. Essentially, Moloch is always depicted as the golden bull with horns, that the primary form of worship was to burn children at the altar of it, which led to these horrifying statues of golden bulls with fires underneath them and people just throwing babies into it, because gotta love that Old Testament stuff. Now, it's not a secret that several demon or demon-like gods are worshipped in the modern sense, although we don't really hear a lot about what they do. Whereas here, we see someone dressed as Moloch at a park on the day that the child he's taking a picture with was burned alive, and you see where I'm going with this.
See, here's what I say. Either this person took inspiration from Moloch, likes the Old Testament, or is a literal incarnation of Moloch and said, yeah, let me just go ahead and play around in my little human avatar today. Let me get my duds all dressed up in, and let me go burn some children for my innate power. And I won't be caught because I can leave my human form and... Bro, what the fuck?
The idea is perhaps this guy has a form of worship to this god.
No, that is him.
Alive as several other children died in the train fire. This opens up the idea that some of these evil practices may still be occurring in the modern world. Neanderthal superiority is the idea that the main competitor with Homo sapien, Neanderthal, was actually the superior race. Basically, people who study like the evolution of humanity say that Neanderthal, who was our main competitor, who was possibly interbred with to create us, it's confusing, from the records of their technological capabilities, were actually the stronger people. However, yet they still seem to lose. And I mean lose in like the evolutionary sense. I mean, it's not like there was a tug of war game over, although there might have been. That would have been cool. Anyway, now where they went, a lot of people say is just from a lack of resources and they died out, although there's a lot cooler theories later in the list. But for now, I want to mention the one throwaway one that I appreciate, is that they eventually evolved into Bigfoot, which is going to be the leading theory from now. So like from this video, Bigfoot is Neanderthal, although I'm going to retcon that one later. But That's canon as of this moment. UFOs, or atmospheric life forms, is actually an idea that was originally brought forward by Robert Fort, the guy I mentioned way back in the Iceberg, the Fortean ideas of the supernatural. This was his doing. Basically, the idea of these energy beings or beings from a separate dimension is that UFOs aren't carriers from aliens from our plane of existence. Instead, there's other planes of existence and they're crossing over, and that's either what they look like or what our brains and like stupid human eyes process them as. Keep in mind, when UFOs were originally spotted, they were described as sky beasts, so that would match up. There's a ton of theories when you go into this, from everything that it is an extraterrestrial, but it's simply sort of camouflaging itself to our eyes, to some even saying they are souls in the afterlife, just visible to the human consciousness, whatever. I don't know what's more terrifying, the idea that there's like 100 living things on side of that ship, or the giant ship itself is a living thing. Actually, now that I say it out loud, yeah, that's definitely more terrifying.
I don't even need to say anything for that. I was going to say where it's terrifying to think that legit souls are just appearing in the sky as that. I don't think my soul looks like that, but okay.
Expanding Earth is the idea that over time the Earth is slowly getting bigger. In the modern sense, we can see that with things on the seafloor seemingly being relocated over the course of 100 years.
Oh, shit.
You know, when it comes to conservation of mass, if there were things in our atmosphere that are now being harvested and turned into things on Earth, then that is slowly compiling to the overall size of it. This is even used as an explanation for continental drift and the idea of Pangea. The idea that they didn't break away and then float, they were sort of pushed apart. Bigger. And ideas such as global warming could be quite literally, since we're getting bigger, we're technically getting closer to the sun. Or, you know, there's the alternative theory that it's not because stuff's getting, you know, put on the Earth, it's that the Earth is expanding from the inside out, which would probably mean that the inside was, I don't know,
hollow.
Forest stare.
Why he laughed like that? I actually just watched his Forest Stairs video while I was taking a shower. Well, not the entire thing, but like part of it. And then I got out and watched the rest.
Is a concept I absolutely love and even did an entire video on, which will be linked in the description. But short version, the forest stairs are these random staircases that seem to be found in remote parts of the forest. Most stories around them relate to the idea of someone going up to them and either hearing or seeing some sort of spatial anomaly, with some cases that happen whenever someone goes to them alone, where they either get mutilated or just die. The leading idea with this is that the stairs are sort of leakovers from other dimension, and directly interacting with them is kind of like staring at a glitch in a video game. Whenever you do it, you are therefore inserting yourself into the problem, which makes sort of the spatial anomalies interact with you. Everything happens to people who walk on the stairs or touch the railings, from they begin to lose all their hearing and start to hear noises that aren't there, to some where they just get eviscerated all at once, which is fun. Either way, the forest stairs exist in that perfect space of sort of neutral anomalies that exist in the mountains and the wilderness, and I, for one, absolutely love it. Nephilim protocols. So, Nephilim...
Set up my Nephilim. There's another bar from somebody that I reference all the time. But, oh, I'm really cold. About the forest stairs. Is there anyone that has come across them? And is this a legit anomaly? Because when I watched this video, I couldn't tell if it was creepypasta, like SCP-ish. Because, again, I started the video when I was in the shower. So when I was hearing the reports of them and the whole park ranger thing, like saying, like, okay, if you see the stairs, just literally stay the fuck off the stairs. Why would you walk on them? But then I was like, bro, I want to come across these stairs and see what happens to me. I don't want to get instantly mutilated, but, you know.
If you didn't watch my Bible, Iceberg, is in relation to the concept of... However, the Nephilim protocols aren't specifically about that. Essentially, there are these hidden files that exist on the deep web, which is a fancy way of saying a Tor browser, yada yada, that over time seem to be collecting data for an unknown reason. All of these files are encrypted, but they're each given a specific encryption key that if a certain event takes place, they will become open. Now, there's a lot of like rabbit holes to shoot down with this, but the short version is that anytime some public scandal comes out, they seem to compile more data. The idea is that these servers, named after giants for a pretty good reason, are compiling a ton of data about elites or secret sort of Watergate-style events that happen around the world, and then for a reason that no one knows, they will become open and shed light on what the elites are doing. No one knows who's doing it, no one knows what opens them, but ideas range from everything that it is certain high-up elitist members who are sort of staging an anti-coup, to it being the Illuminati, to some saying that it's quite literally giants themselves, which is my favorite theory and the one I'm going with. I just imagine like a giant like underground in a cave, like wearing the Morpheus outfit from the Matrix with the glasses, like on a giant keyboard gathering information about Epstein, and it just makes me happy. Atomic renovation is one of two theories. I think it's the latter, but I'll say but
imagine atomic renovation. Imagine just like dropping a fucking nuke to clear out an area just to build some buildings. What the fuck? If this one has any weight or any fucking standing in reality, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard of.
Both. The first one is the idea that the stereotypical American 50s, whenever people had the idea of the atomic family, was part of a docility program, essentially get people to accept this one way of living, so that way they don't think about the government around them or the concepts, which while there's a case to be made for that, I think it's actually referring to the second idea. The second idea is that atomic weapons were developed by governments as a means of immediately reclaiming a populace. Basically, think of it like this. If the evil lizard government gets together and decides that they can nuke a certain country because the people aren't doing well, then they can just nuke it, and then they can wait 30 years, and then they can go in and just reset it. So essentially, you renovate whatever group of people you don't like, if they're too insubordinate or whatever, and atomic weapons are essentially a giant reset button. So they weren't developed.
In a sense, they are a giant fucking reset button. Why would this be a thing, bro? I'm really, really tired. But I'm really, really tired. I don't even know why. Mostly, some of these ones are like the ones in this video are kind of lackluster to me. Some of them were pretty cool. I gotta get off of atomic renovation. I gotta get off of this before I die.
Defend a country, as we're led to believe, basically as a giant system of population control. Since its programming has to do with your individual experience as a human on Earth. Basically, it's like this. You've heard concepts that your red is not my red, and that everyone smells different smells a certain way, or everyone tastes things a different way. And all of those senses have slowly been programmed into you over time. The interesting thing is, we don't really know what does that programming. Sure, people can see different shades of color.
Since we're into this, like I said, we just needed a little bit more of an interesting one to pop up. Okay, so when I mentioned this, do you remember the certain sickness that was on the planet for a little bit, for like these last 2 years? Could have even been longer, because it's been weird that people predicted it was coming. But that weird little sickness we had that's still around, you know, there's still weird things going on with masks and stuff. There was an idea or a theory that I've heard that was, because it just keeps, you know how these things keep branching and branching and branching and branching. So just know that there's many other theories of where it came from, but I've heard one of the reasons and the purpose to it was to take away the senses for you to hone your mind or craft your mind and strengthen it more. Because if the universe is just all thought and all up in here, and everything is divine thought, like divine mind creates hearts, brains, livers, and all that. And it's all this simulation that sickness that was here was meant to take away your senses and like break down the body to where you can't smell, taste, touch, whatever. And you had to, over time, bring it back with it. It was almost like it deprogrammed you for you to reprogram yourself. Because I heard a lot of people say, oh yeah, I had to relearn the taste of chicken, relearn the taste of this, do this. It's like I had to relearn everything. And funny enough, when I started hearing people say that, that made me think back to the that theory. Also, I guess to just drop this as like a little bonus, another thing was I talked to this this girl. I forgot. I don't remember. I don't know. For some reason, like I want to say her age, but I don't know why. Like for some reason, I'm hearing just 24 and 25 in my head to say it. But I remember when she told me that this whole thing was actually a very positive thing for her. And though a lot of people may find that weird, it was like a positive thing to her because it like made her realize she didn't need her friends and something. Like they weren't really. There was a cool thing with that, but like I've just heard she gave me a wild theory too. On top of that, like it like separating friends and like forcing people to have to like do things like actually get into meditation and self-discovery and stuff because it like separated everyone, and people who feared it more were going to stay away from you regardless. So it kind of got people away from maybe bad groups of friends. Yeah, it was a cool thing she told me, but I really think about that senses programming. That makes me think about that the sickness was to take away your senses and basically for you to realize you're the one that programmed them. Because I mean, if we're all divine mind, I'm going to get deep and we're going to go on forever, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, this one made me think of that. Really cool.
Colors differently, but it's believed that that is a learned trait rather than a born one. So there are these hidden factors that exist around us that cause us to experience reality in the precise way that we experience it, creating a 100% unique humanity from every person to person. Paradigm recolescence is a sort of
paradigm
recolescence idea when it comes to technology of eventually getting to a point above consciousness. Think of it as like having an out-of-body experience that you can control and interact with other minds. The idea behind it is that we're really, really close. Like think of everything technology can accomplish when it comes to medicine and psychology, and think if we can find a way to get consciousness out of the human body for a limited amount of time. A theory going a bit deeper than that. So there is this thing I've seen floating around whenever I talk about these sort of technological concepts on the iceberg called the Mariana Web. Essentially, it's supposed to be a very deep down part of the internet that is purely data. It's supposed to be the hard files on how to make the Broder's engine that I talked about. It has all the schematics to build a GGG-QEP, which is the supercomputer I talked about, and the paradigm recolescence as well. The idea is these are technological things that will push humanity to the next level. And even though we know how to do it, the elites or the powers that be are hiding them from us because either we're not ready or they don't want us to have that power. So essentially, somewhere there exists a super internet where we can make the next step in the technological revolution and become these super beings that can project our body and have infinite energy, and these forever computers and whatever. So if anyone can find it, I'll give you $5. Neolithic's contraption is closely...
I mean, you are the highest form of technology right now. I'm going to say that confidently and not elaborate anymore. But what I do have to say is I can't, man. I feel like I can't speak on those certain things, but I want to. Am I holding myself back when I do this? Or should I just like come out as just totally sounding insane in these videos? Maybe I just should, man. Who cares? You only live once. I'm sure it wouldn't stop me from anything. I've had experiences. I've lived a life. Maybe I'll disappear for these videos. No, I'm just joking. There's certain things I want to say on like a topic like that one, but I'll leave it alone. Now Stonehenge, yeah, is he gonna go into how like people think Stonehenge is like a clock
related to
or like a sun? Yeah, like
the whole microchips found in dinosaur bones. Basically, looking at Neolithic devices or other ancient groups of people and the designs that they built, there's some interesting crossovers. For example, concepts like the aqueduct and even things like wind turbine engines had these sort of basic forms that were created in ancient society that we seem to forget about for 1,000 years and then reinvent later. So think about this. You have us now who is making technology, and then imagine that there was something like, I don't know, a great reset where all of humanity starts over. So then it continues on that pipeline, and then they begin to forget why they know some things, and then they're rediscovered. Essentially saying ancient world technologies that seemed quite advanced for their time are because of memories or remnants from technologies that existed in the previous generation of people. And I don't mean generation as in like their parents, I mean generation like the next cycle back. So these contraptions that were built thousands and thousands of years ago are due to contraptions that were built millions and millions of years ago. Iratus is something that if you're on this side of YouTube, I'm sure you've heard of before. Now there is
I've seen that image. It's a freaky image. I've seen this image. I was going to say something about the Neolithic contraptions, but I'll leave it alone.
Excellent video by Nexpo that I'm going to link in the description. He covers this in way better detail than I can go into right now, but the short version's this. Basically, someone discovered that at UPS there was a word called Iratus that they weren't supposed to ask about, and anyone who asked about it got fired. And after doing some digging, the original poster figured out that this exists across several companies, and Iratus is essentially this program that compiles information about millions and millions of people and then throws it into assumedly a government database. Of course, this is super illegal, but the idea behind it is that it is a means of general population control by knowing everything about what everyone's doing, etc. Where the creepy part comes in is that anyone who talks about Iratus online either gets shut down or silenced in some way. Now, Nexpo's video staying up after having like 3.6 million views about it kind of kills the fun there, but the idea of it being a super database that brings in information about everyone who seemingly just works normal jobs is still present. Diseases worship is exactly what it says. There are certain groups of society throughout history who have quite literally worshipped diseases. Examples of that would be gods like Sapano from older cultures that was quite literally the god of smallpox. So tie in what I said about the Black Plague earlier and put together this entire idea that if these great diseases that wiped out large portions of humanity were either extraterrestrial or supernatural in some way, then it would make sense for people to worship it, which would mean in the historical context, they have the same energy of that as a sort of pagan god. And depending on how you feel about pagan gods or the ideas of lesser gods existing in the world, then it may stand to reason that diseases themselves are sort of expressions or at least punishments from these beings. Because several diseases seem to come out of nowhere, and why we believe that to be mutation, the theory is saying that it is in fact a divine, or I guess you could say anti-divine, whatever the correct word is for like other gods, I don't know. It's supernatural, honky wonky stuff.
It's all divine cleansing. See, that's what I mean. There is no separation. It's like all these beings and entities are divine. It's all divine. There isn't an anti-divine and a divine. It's like it's all divine. It's yeah. I don't know. Like, what would you fucking? I would really separate it as divine and artificial, like trying to make an artificial mind. So it's like the only time that you're gonna make a split is if, you know, a lesser god or a demigod or a god is still a god in the thing, in the sense of just everything being a divine mind. So, yeah.
Animal-plant hybrids relates to the overall idea of convergent evolution. Essentially, there have been modern microbes found.
Is that a bull leaf? Like what the fuck? A goat leaf?
Both
that looks fucking sick.
Plant and animal cells, leaving them as sort of like a perfect middle on what we understand as the biological trees. And if things can be observed in the modern times heading that direction, then potentially a way long time back, things from one tree jumped over to the other, or the idea that all of biology itself is slowly going towards that perfect middle or perfect creature. Also, there were a bunch of like old middle-aged legends of like trees that like just made babies, or like these bushes and cabbages that made like goats and stuff, so that's related, I guess. Sky Snag theory is saying that UFOs are the pure result of a chemical reaction in the air. Essentially, whenever two conflicting air waves hit each other at great speeds, or there's sort of a crosswind, the friction that's produced between them, along with the trace particles in them, starts to form essentially a snowball that keeps expanding. That sort of aluminum sphere that's created seems to be a UFO to us, but is actually an accumulation of whatever trace metals or other particles are floating around in the sky. This is saying not only are UFOs just objects in the air, but can also be induced by governments. So if they want to encourage a UFO sighting in some place, all you got to do is release a bunch of trace elements into the air, make the airstreams go together, which we've well established at this point in the iceberg, the government controls the weather, and then boom, you've got a UFO. That would also explain the perfect shape, because the sphere is created because they're like perfectly adding the atoms wherever they seem fit, and that's why it's a circle. Also, every single video describing this, or like animation describing it, is really creepy and unsettling, and I'll let you find that for yourself. That is your homework. Have fun with that. Veltaslayer, which stands for...
When he said that, I was like, not gonna be me.
World of Ice, or World in Ice, something like that, is also known as glacial cosmogony. It was an idea brought forward by Hans Horbinger.
Glacial cosmogony.
Herbinger, whatever, in the early 19th century as an idea of the existence of humanity. The story's really long, but short version is one night he was looking at the moon and realized that the iridescence of it is exactly that of ice. And then after having a dream in which he was shown the cosmos and how ice broke apart and formed everything as we know it, he came to the idea that the base root of everything in the known universe was ice. Essentially, the theory says that trace amounts of hydrogen went through the air, and then they froze in the depths of space and created ice, and then those were broken apart, and that's what led to modern life. And water and life and oxygen and everything like that comes from melted or different versions of ice itself. This also relates to really old world ideas that on every side of the earth were essentially these giant ice walls, which is actually a theory that's still put forward by some flat earth believers, that around every corner of the earth are these giant walls of ice that hold in the barriers of what we know, or essentially the reason the world may be expanding is because it's melting outwards. Also, several old stories like a Norse mythology talked about giants beyond the ice wall. That's not related to this, I just had to mention that. And also these ideas of the
Of course he had to mention it because giants are in it. I mean, it's weird when you think about things like that, and then, it's weird when you think about things like this, and then you know how, of course they do this, but I don't even think it's the government. I just want to say like Hollywood. Well, Hollywood is the government, right? Well, you know how like the government hides, basically they hide messages in movies. In every single movie you find, that you can find a deeper meaning or a lesson in everything. It's odd how like it's even reflected in certain writers. So I'm gonna say his name, George R.R. Martin. It's really strange how Game of Thrones has a huge ass ice wall as like an idea, because it's like art imitates reality, or that whole thing. And then like, yeah, I don't know. That just made me think about Game of Thrones.
Veltaslayer led to a lot of the German research that happened in World War II into theories like the occult and all of that, so that's something. Cosmic Censorship Cottage, I'm convinced, is a typo. And I know that nothing else on here has been a typo, and that doesn't make sense, but you also got to realize this iceberg was made by one person, and you also got to realize I spent like a day searching everywhere on the internet, all of my resources, for where Cosmic Censorship Cottage goes together, and it's nowhere.
The iceberg was made by one person? I forgot that, being this far along now. Holy moly. And there we go. We got a synchronicity during the video. 111. I paused it and it's 111. Wow, that's pretty cool. 3111, but that's how some of the repetitive numbers show up. So yeah, I've shown it before where there's not. But yeah, there you go. That's synchronicity. That's pretty cool.
However, there is a very known thing called the cosmic censorship conjecture, which I'm going to retcon here and say that's what he meant. Because cottage, for one, doesn't make sense here. There's a term that would fit on this iceberg that has a very closely related word, or at least spelling related there. And I have no idea how cottage could tie into this at all. So it's conjecture now. Just saying that now. The cosmic censorship conjecture is an idea that relates to things like black holes. So in the realm of physics, there are several things that we get to known as singularities. These are points where either gravity reaches an infinite point, or mass reaches an infinite point, or whatever. The reason black holes are a big example of that is because gravity goes to such a point that mass's weight goes to a near infinite. So every time that we get to one of these singularities, something really weird happens. That's where the idea of like E equals mc squared and other ideas that Einstein came up with come from. The idea that if you reach a theoretical infinite in energy, you can do really wonky things like travel through time. Or I should...
I can't even hear Einstein anymore. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I cannot hear Einstein anymore. Someone in my past, or in my girlfriend's past before I met her, told her that her and Einstein are twins or something like that. Bro, I can't even hear Einstein. It's like PTSD hearing the name now, man. It makes me freak out, man. Because she does not look like him. Sorry, I had to share that with you guys. They're like twins. She even told me I'm sorry if he was alive. Like, I gotta go. Like, she's going for Einstein. I was, bro, wasn't he married? Girls just like psychologically fucking with us like that. It's crazy, right? There's not a goddamn celebrity, ancient philosopher, ancient mathematician that I would care that was alive. I know, it's all jokes. It's all jokes over here. Maybe not, honestly. I don't even fucking know.
Say a near infinite speed, but whatever, same thing. Basically, it's like there's these hard walls with our understanding or what we can do in physics that we just can't seem to break. Things like starting a black hole, despite our lack of trying with things like the Hadron Collider. Or
funny enough that I found research that says like when each of us die, it creates a black hole. So take that one with you. If we're all the universe, and the universe like exists, well, if the universe is mind and it's also being projected from what we think, and it's also internal, then when you die, black hole kind of makes sense.
Or
right?
Breaking the speed of light.
Well, not.
However,
I gotta get deeper in that, but
anytime that happens in our known world, anytime that something breaks those rules of physics, there's like a weird veil put over it. Like a black hole, right? The reason it's called a black hole is because it carries such weight that light itself cannot escape the pool, which is a really wild concept to think about, but that doesn't mean nothing's going on there. It doesn't mean it's an empty space. It's just that from our rules of observation, whenever something gets to such a wild point in physics, it's impossible for us to view it. The same with something traveling faster than the speed of light. If something were to do that, we would have no way of seeing that or processing what it's doing. It would simply occur.
It would
the
simply
cosmic
occur.
censorship conjecture is that anytime something is allowed to break our rules, we're not allowed to watch it. Now, if you want to get into the idea that that's God, that we're in a simulation, and those are like the parameters set by the CPU we're in, or whatever other theories you have, it's saying that whenever something does something that we ourselves can't, we're not allowed to look at it. This has led some to theorize that maybe if we could see into a black hole, we would see the supernatural or the afterlife or some other really out there.
The afterlife, that's funny enough. Inside of a black hole, when we die, there's a black hole. That's crazy.
Concept that we can't really understand. Because there's no specific rules that just because mass gets so heavy, we no longer can see it. It's, again, just like a sort of veil draped over our heads. So all of these gaps in our understanding of how the world works may not be accidental, but purposefully put there by someone or something. And that'll do it for Tier 8 of the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg. Everyone, we have got 2 tiers to go. Tier 9 is really cool. I've looked at some of the terms, and it's all like just mind-blowing stuff every single point.
Yeah. I seen the thing too, like when I read it, which I keep mentioning, but that's where basically where I think it'll pick up and get way cool again. Shout out to Wendigoon, that was dope. And as always, well, before I get out of here, that last one that he was talking about, um, I feel like your mind, like that's what I mean is, okay, so when we talk about the Neville Goddards, the Dolores Cannons, the Alan Watts, and talking about how, like, and there's been many, they're the names that pop up in my head because they're the ones that are showing themselves to me more, like, lately. Algorithm just popping up with videos from them and others talking of the law of attraction, but knowing that whether, like, whatever you believe in, that it's God, the universe, the source, whatever you want to call it, is your imagination, right? Another thing I believe is that the human imagination is not actually is not imagination. It has to be a higher form, because just from mindset alone and everything you could do with your mind, you can completely change your life. So the imagination is God. The imagination is whatever. It's everything. It's all these entities, right? With that said, I don't think these concepts and stuff and mind-blowing things are on the list to not be like, okay, so you know how he said how, like, crazy things happen in a way where, like, we wouldn't understand them, or they happen from outside of our understanding. I think to some degree that your imagination can allow you to understand it, because it's easy to just blanket it as like fantasy or something. Like I guess like I could explain this. I have the best way to explain this. So how he's talking about something traveling faster than the speed of light, yada yada, etc., right? Maybe in a different planet where you've incarnated before, because Earth is a pretty hard school or prison, with whether the way you look at it, right? Maybe on a planet somewhere else, dragons exist, right? So someone gets the dream here, uses their imagination, channels the divine to whip up a dragon. Now, by a realistic way of looking at it, we have no way of understanding what a dragon does, how it eats, how it breathes fire from some internal fucking lung or stomach that just like mixes a certain gas and something together and produces fire, or like an ice dragon or a poison dragon, right? But someone gets the idea of that, the thought, the imagination brings it to life here. They put it into a game, and they put rules around that world so we can kind of understand the dragon sometimes, or maybe like the anatomy of a dragon, but we can never understand the anatomy of a dragon. You know what I'm saying? And how he talked about there's a veil placed over it when something like that occurs. I would say, let me get away from the veil before it confuses my whole point. But the whole thing is like, with the imagination, I think we can understand these things or make them make sense to us. Or sometimes you're not supposed to understand something, but in a way you can understand how it is possible. So you can understand certain things to a certain degree, but you wouldn't have a way of explaining it or like necessarily proving it to others. But that doesn't matter, because it's basically you're proving it to yourself in a sort of way. I hope I'm making sense. It's almost like we can't explain how, we can't understand magic. Well, okay, I can't say that because you could do it in your head, but we can't understand how to fucking shoot things from our hand and cast spells like in Harry Potter, but it still exists in a form of fantasy on Earth. So in a way, it's like cosmic censorship. It's like, it's almost like I'm trying to think of it in a way where it's like, if this is all born from divine thought, you can just blanket it over divine thought. It's like technically you can understand it, but how it works here, you wouldn't be able to replicate it, but you can understand how it exists. I really hope that made some sense. I'm over here casting an ice make ability, if you guys are familiar with Gray from Fairy Tale, but is he the only one that does this? I think he does this. But I feel like that made sense. I hope someone at least with my Aquarius mindset of how things make sense in my mind, that someone picks that apart and understands it. But it's basically like we technically do understand it, but it doesn't fit. Okay, I'm done. Much love and moonlight. I'll see you in the next one.